back to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Sometimes I think I have the very best job in the whole wide world, right? Every single week, I get to talk to talented interior designers, window treatment professionals, creative entrepreneurs, picking their brains about what works best in their businesses, right? And you and I get to learn from it. We do this also at Exciting Windows at our weekly meetings, sharing from other business owners, people that might be in business in our same area. We're not worried about it. Are you? When is the last time you asked another interior designer for advice or encouragement? Camaraderie can be an amazing thing to have in any industry, but especially the interior design industry. And my guests today want to make sure that you feel comfortable doing that. Shaun Crha and Rebecca Plumb are design besties, and they are the hosts of the Hot Young Designers Club podcast. They met on Instagram, and they began mentoring each other as peers, and their friendship grew from there. Now they share all of the wisdom with us on Hot Young Designers Club podcast. It's funny and entertaining, but definitely informative. I was introduced to them by my good friend and fellow podcaster, Rick Campos. Rick was on the show, episode 790, and we were talking about how it can be beneficial to listen and learn passively from other designers, but also how amazing it is when we are able to take those relationships virtual and move them to real life. Right? And that's when he told me about Shaun and Rebecca, and I just love their story. Sometimes it can be difficult to befriend other designers. Maybe you think they're your competition, but I don't see it that way, and neither do Shaun and Rebecca. Other designers can and should be your community and your resources. Both from California, Shaun and Rebecca each came to design as a second career. Shaun, a former banker, founded Renstead Interiors in 2017. He works on residential projects of all sizes in Long Beach, California. Rebecca, first in marketing and graphic design, is the founder of Studio Plumb, a full-service design firm, and also of Happy Hour Design Collective, a collaborative co-working space, materials library, and upholstery showroom in Sacramento. It's not every day that I get to talk to other podcasters, so it's always fun for me when I do. And I hope that you'll enjoy it as well. Let's listen to Shaun and Rebecca tell us about their journey. Hey, Shaun. Hi, Rebecca. How are you guys today?
Hi, LuAnn. So good to be here.
Hi, LuAnn. Thanks for having us.
Well, I mean, this is like so much fun for me because first of all, I'm interviewing the hot young designers. I mean, like, stop right there.
Not that hot.
Or that young.
I think that's so fun the way you guys do it. I think it's so fun the way you do that. But, I have to say, couple things. First of all, we're doing this with video, which in 7 years, I think I've done like 5 with video. So I'm just happy to be doing it with you guys for the first time because you have such a great energy together and you're making me ridiculously silly in being in your energy. And so I'm just like, all right, let's go for it. If we weren't prepared, we didn't know we were going to, but we are.
We're always down for an adventure.
I know, you're so fun. So I'm really glad that Rick Campos introduced and connected us. So that's fun for me too, because I just love Rick and I just love what he does and his podcast and the business coaching and consulting he does with interior designers. And once he, I had heard of you guys, of course, everybody knows about your podcast and stuff, but it was fun for the connection and to really be the impetus to make us do this. And so I have to say, listening to your show it's I would not have thought that. I love how everybody comes to whatever it is they do, podcasting, interior design, whatever it is, they come with their own slant to it. So when you guys are spending a few minutes, I love the fizzle and the sizzle, like those little segments where you talk about the good things and the bad things. And you got into a conversation in one of the shows about Britney Spears and what happened, right? And I'm like, I have to tell you, I am like moving at the speed of light and very rarely have patience for things. And I'm like literally engrossed in these conversations. And I'm thinking, this is amazing. You do. You have a great like perspective and banter. Talk to me about this. How did this happen?
Well, our relationship started on the internet, on Instagram. Instagram was our hookup. Shaun slid into my DMs. We call it the Surha slide. Like, he's famous for doing that.
I have no shame. I'll talk to anybody.
And we were both happening to go to Vegas market at the same time, and we decided to meet. And we instantly just had this rapport, which I guess is what you're hearing. And he's in LA, I'm in Northern California, and we just had daily phone calls. It was like being in high school again. It was really weird, kind of. Like, we would just call each other all day.
Hang up. No, you hang up. Like,
oh, wait, I forgot to tell you something. It was just these conversations we were having. So I guess most of our relationship is conversation, because we see each other a few times a year, but we're not in person a lot. So I think that's just how we banter. I don't know.
Yeah.
Through memes and Parco Polo video chats.
A little bit of pop culture thrown in, because I think it's like we didn't want the show to ignore everything about ourselves or our personal lives, just because we're not all just business people all the time. And then after a while, we feel drained if you talk about business all the time. So then we're just talking about TV shows or talking about that. And I think that's what a lot of our listeners, the hotties, respond to, is that it isn't all business and it's not all that serious. And we don't have to take ourselves too seriously. So we try to just bring that and infuse that, in our conversations together on the show too.
Well, and I love it. I love because for me, analyzing it as a business model, right? This is what I do, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, I love this. There's nothing maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't think there's another podcast in the industry that is doing this slant, right? That is actually mixing a lot of the personal with your point of view on world events, and bringing a lot of your actual rounded personality. Like I know that I bring my whole personality to my podcast, but it's not every aspect of it, right? I mean, I don't know how to describe that, because I am actually my whole self there, but I'll talk about all the things, right? And so, and I love that it's truly, like, it feels like, I said, it was infectious. I'm just like listening and listening and listening. And it's great because there's room for all different things to, it's like 60 minutes and then, today's show or, something like that. It's like filling different niches, right? Would you?
For sure.
Yeah.
That was entirely intentional. Our whole premise was we want people to feel like they're in the room with us and part of our friend group, because we do consider them that. So when we do see hotties in the wild, which we'll see them in Vegas next week, and they feel like they know us, which is exactly what we wanted. And that's like the best feeling, to know that actually is coming through.
So this is the other thing I love. Your hotties and your hotties in the wild. So how do your hotties in the wild identify themselves to you? Do they just come running up and say, I'm a hottie too?
Yeah, they do. They really do say that.
I have quite a few come up. They're like, I listen to the show. I'm not going to bother you. And I'm like, no, please come bother us. Like, please come and talk to us. Like, we're literally on the internet all the time. And so, yes, like, please come over and say what you're enjoying, what you're not, what's exciting about if we're at an industry event, what worries you, or ask us what's missing. Because I just think that that's the icebreaker, hopefully, for a lot of these designers, is they take this as the opportunity to okay, I already kind of know them, so I know what they'll want to talk about first. And that's
Yeah.
like the hardest part when you're meeting new people in any place. You just want to know
Yes.
there's an in on that first part of the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. No, I always say that too. To when I'm on the podcast or when I'm in, come up and introduce yourself to me. Come, come
Yeah.
grab me and say I'm so and so. You know what I mean? Because it is
Yeah.
fun. Because otherwise, like, look at this funky booth I'm in. Like you're
Yeah, we're
doing it
just
from a
like
booth.
talking one way and we don't get to
Yeah.
hear them back.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
you sit here in this booth and you're just like, is anybody out there?
Thing on.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
And that is it's funny too, because my daughter has a podcast called Sass Says. And actually, the conversation that you guys had about Britney Spears made me think of her podcast, because her podcast is about mental health and about making it okay to talk about it. Like, this is
Mhm.
ridiculous. Why do we pretend it's okay to talk about if you broke your leg, but it's not okay to talk about if your brain feels broken, right? And
Yeah.
one of the things that we were talking about, she's been podcasting for a year and a half now, and she has a good following and a good amount of downloads and stuff, but she's losing tiny bit of focus or juice on it, I guess and it hit me when we were talking about it over Christmas. I'm like, oh, because you don't know your audience. You haven't
Mhm.
met your audience. You see, the
Yeah.
design industry, we go to events and people come up and they say, oh my God, I love the Young Hot
Mhm.
Designers podcast. And they come up and say to me, and then you're like, oh, there are people listening,
Yes.
but think about a podcaster that isn't having a chance to connect with their audience. That's tough.
It's just into the void, and you don't know if people like it and if they're responding. And it does take a lot of energy to hear from other people what they like, what they don't, what they responded to. And the only way we really get that feedback is trying to pull those conversations together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we have like really dedicated hotties that have been with us from the beginning. And so now it feels like, I just feel like we're talking to them. There's 10 people
Yes.
that are listening that are our friends all over the country. And they give
Yeah.
us feedback and we hear from them.
That's nice. That's nice. And you do always remember the ones that made themselves known in that first
Mhm.
year, right? Like
Mhm.
For
I
sure.
could name them off right now, right? Because again, that was like before you go out and you actually meet them in real life. And if they were commenting on Instagram or answering an email or something, you were just like, oh my God, you're out there.
Yeah.
There's a real person on the other side of this.
Exactly. So fun. So fun. Okay. So, talk to me about that. I think that is one of the things like that you mentioned in particular, Rebecca, is about having, the relationships at the, forget us as podcasters now and wanting to know and understand and get feedback from our audience, but just creating relationships within the industry the way you and Shaun did and become what we all refer to as designer besties, right? So
Mhm.
talk to us about what you know between the two of you, how that impacts your business and just your state of mind, and how you've learned from the people in your audience, how it works for them.
So in 2020, when Shaun and I met, January 2020, our businesses are pretty much the same age. And so we were kind of growing a little bit and wanting to grow and do more. And I had a couple relationships locally, but I still didn't have like mentorship. And when we met, it instantly just turned into peer-to-peer mentorship. And at the same time, I connected with another local designer here in Sacramento who were honestly like pretty close competitors. Like our styles are really similar. We know a lot of the same people, but we get along really well and just decided there is so much work for all of us. Like all of my client isn't your client.
Right.
So let's just help each other. And her and I are in another business together, actually. So having that peer-to-peer true friendship, true help, here's a copy of my proposal, let me see yours. I mean, we really share everything. Like, not, you don't have to do everything, but we share a lot. And
Mhm.
it gives given me so much confidence. Shaun's like Mr. Boundaries. If you listen to our show, like, he's always like the first to teach us about like where to draw a line. And
I'm
he
like, hold on, there's a contractual thing we need to deal with first here. Like,
doesn't let people cross it, and he's taught me a lot, and I think I probably taught him other things, but
absolutely.
we have our different skills and we can be real with each other and just be like, no, I think you need to do this, and coach each other. But
Mm.
it's not a one-way relationship. We do it together. So the three of us have a really strong bond for these past 3 years that has been immensely helpful.
Yeah. So it's funny that you talk about Shaun, and it just sounds like you're just a little bit more disciplined with boundaries and so forth. Because one of the shows I listened to was
Uh-oh.
where you were firing a client, and you were just like, "That's it,
Yes.
it's over, I'm done." You know, and I was actually thinking to myself, you were unless you were changing details, but I'm thinking, if I'm this client, I can pick myself out of this
They know who,
conversation.
if they're listening, they know. Yeah.
And you're like, I
Yeah.
don't care. I don't care.
No, I don't identify them, but sure, if they
Right.
knew the details of that situation, then they're going to go, oh, here are the real thoughts. And I think part of that is just, I'm not changing what I said to that client from what I put on our show. Like
Right.
I only have one version, and this is what we were saying, is like, there's one version of me, and I'm not going to like hide important details from the client if they're like, but why isn't this working? Like, those are the real reasons. And I'm not saying it in a I just got to keep it real type of way. There's a way to say it, with feelings in mind, but also the truth. And I think
Right.
it's really powerful to use that. And a lot of that probably comes from my banking career of, you can't just hide behind, like, there's going to be a real reason, and you're going to have to tell someone what went wrong or what's going on at some point, because
Right.
you can't just use these like niceties to hide behind it after a while.
Right.
And so it's sort of just grown into that part of my business of, I said, this is how I'm going to do it. If I can change it later, but I've got to try it the way I said I needed to, because there was a problem in my business that caused it. And now we don't text anymore because of that problem. And,
I love texting with clients. I mean,
wait,
not
you
all
do
night.
like it or you don't?
I do.
Oh.
I do. I mean, not all night. Like, I don't want them sending me ideas in the middle of the night or anything, but
yeah,
I don't mind it. To me,
Right.
it like is a little bit easier. My brain's more fluid, and I'm an Enneagram 7. Like, I like all the possibilities, all the things. I like.
So that's interesting. And Shaun, that's a hard no in your business, texting.
No. Yeah, I don't. Only thing I want is I'm 5 minutes away from the site,
Right.
or like, cool. Like, thanks for letting me know you're not going to be here on time, or hey, my kid just tossed up in the car. Like, give me a minute. Like, totally. Yes. Send that so I know. But otherwise, my brain just constantly switches. It's like, great, now I'm back to work mode. And, in the evenings, that's really that like, it's like getting pulled through a whirlpool for me. Like, suddenly I was enjoying a moment with my family, and that message pops up, and I'm like, oh man, like, I'm totally gone from that world I was in. And it's like back through the looking glass. So for me, that helps me stay present when I'm in those different modes. And I feel like I can switch my code over depending on that. So,
and I don't like it. From when I'm working in Window Works, I don't like the texting, because I'm going to get so many text messages from morning to night that if at 9:00 in the morning, like a designer says to me, oh, blah, 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 by the time I get to Window Works, I'm doing it at 4:00 in the afternoon. that text is gone. Like, it's not in the queue anymore. It's far back. You know what I'm saying? And there's no way for me to feel accountable to it. And so,
and if it's data, like, oh, this key piece of information changed and here's the measurement, like, I don't want that in my text.
Right.
But I don't mind the relationship building and the support through it. It's kind of easier for me, because when I get into my email, then that's when I go, like, I'm down the rabbit hole. So sometimes like quick hits and texts are easier for me to stay in the flow of what I'm doing.
And what I like about this is, the reality is that there is not just one way to do things, right? We've had designers on my podcast, come on and be like, absolutely, this is not blah, blah, blah. And what happens is I will often get a newer designer, newer business owner, and maybe they'll DM me or they'll email me and they'll be like, oh, I listened to that show and so said we should never be texting. And so I stopped all that in my business. And my brain
Yeah.
goes, well, if it was working for you, it's
Yeah.
okay. You only need to stop it if you're like Shaun is saying, he doesn't like his personal life interrupted. He doesn't want that mojo entering. And for me, I don't want to lose track of the detail. So I don't want any of it there. But if it works for you, you don't have to listen to somebody else that said, no, not do it. So it's great that the two of you are opposites in the same like little dynamic here.
In a lot of things we are. So on the show, it happens a lot where Shaun will like have some big thought, or me, but I'll usually be like, well, another way.
I'm kind of okay with that, and here's why.
Yeah, I don't know. I like really mixing my life together. Like I like work and friendship and all of that to be mixed up. I want to really enjoy everybody equally. So, but if your brain works better to be compartmentalized, I totally understand that.
So what you're saying is that you do a lot of mixing and socializing with your clients as opposed to Shaun, who keeps it a little bit more separate. Is that what you meant by that?
I would probably consider a lot of my clients friends, or friends have turned into clients, not close friends. Or not, I don't do work with close friends because I don't think that's a great idea. But
but the other way, a stranger client becomes in your friend circle.
Or like I still have a young daughter. My daughter's 8. So I have a lot of just mom friends that we've kind of, raised our kids together. So I'm still in that community level, which is really conducive to business.
Yeah.
And so I know them and we know our lives and we share together. And I do like to really feel like I'm knowing their whole person too, because it's an intimate relationship in their home.
Yeah, this is true. But you have more of a lane of boundaries, Shaun. The way you run your business, you prefer a little bit more separation of church and state there.
Yeah, I do. I've had, lunches with clients, or we've gotten together like at that, we're like in a project and I'm like, okay, this meeting's going to go long. Like, are you eating right now? Like, I need to eat anyway. Do you want to just go eat right now? Like, let's go. And that stuff happens. That's normal. But I wouldn't say I like go, I'm not going out of my way for that. I do like there to be sort of like a quiet, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain atmosphere sometimes, because I do find that when I leave my clients to be more contemplative, their ideas collect a little bit more, like they glob together better. I don't know the word I'm thinking of, but if I give,
I'm inviting them back to my house.
Yeah, exactly. But if I give them, that, I can give them some space sometimes to let their ideas glob together and then let my ideas sort of concentrate a little bit easier. And it's funny because I think it's started to also attract clients who respond to that too, who also like that in their lives, and they see what I share on Instagram or the way I explain things, and they're like, I'm already aligned with you. I know exactly what you're saying, or I was going to say it the same way. And so not that it's an echo chamber, but it is nice to have clients who get this idea of, okay, my busy, crazy life, I like that it's in this rigid time. I know the rules of how to engage with it, and it's not going to frustrate you. And, now we all know how to work together faster.
And a lot of your clients tend to be in like analytical careers. Like you have a lot of attorneys and doctors.
And so they're very contemplative in general. And I think that
we attract the type of clients that are attracted to our personality type and the type of business that we run. I think that's why there's so much room for all of us.
This is true.
Because there's so many different kinds of people.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you guys. And, you're at will to say, nah, not going to answer it. But you both listened to my show. You told me that you did. And you know that I'm always talking about, do you have your back end and your processes and everything all figured out? Scale of 1 to 10, where would you guys place your own individual businesses as far as, and I don't think there's a such thing as a 10, believe me. WindowWorks is a very well-run company, and I would not give it a 10. Okay. But where would you put your individual businesses on a scale of back end being, well-run and process and system driven? Curiously.
I feel like I'm now at a point where I say I'm around a 6.
Very nice.
And that's Shaun saying he's a 6. I would say Shaun's like an 8.
Uh-huh.
It's also the filter that it's getting processed through.
Okay.
I'm definitely my
I
worst critic for sure.
Yeah, because you very much value those things too. Not that I don't, but I would say mine is not where it should be. I don't know. I'm probably like a 3 or a 4. It's not. And I talk
Would
about this
you agree with
openly on the
that? Is she
podcast.
that all the way to a
He
3?
totally would.
No,
He'd probably
because
give me
there's
love.
so much of Rebecca's process that when she first started talking to me, I was like, "Oh my God, how are you blowing my mind with this right now? Like, why was I
So
not sending automated calendar links?
I've
Why
learned
did I
how
not already
to.
have that? Like the
Okay.
automation and those steps, like the behind the scenes, sure, there might be a little bit of like hamster wheeling or like the mad dash, but from a client perspective, you're preserving so much of what they see, and so much of Rebecca's processes are built around like the user interface or what the client experience is going to be. And so yes, even if there's behind the scenes like I still like to print out my stuff and really get messy with the creative, the part the client is seeing is still, here's your kickoff link, here's the process, okay, you signed up for this, and that now this document automatically sends.
Did you shade me for printing things out?
No.
Love a
But that's what I'm
printout.
saying. Like, it might seem messy to somebody who really wants their process to be like, oh, I have a 4-step thing with 8
Yeah.
subtasks in Asana for this. But it's not always like creative works in that way where it gives you the freedom to do those ideas. But I think her clients see a really organized process and feel like the next step, oh, here it is. It's already planned. Like right when I was going to ask, the link is there or that email is coming. And so I think that makes a difference.
So I
And frees
come
up
from
her space to do it.
So I was a graphic designer and I owned a marketing creative company. So I do have a very like presentation forward creative mind. And some of those things Shaun was talking about, automation. I struggle sometimes with expectations on me. I don't like people needing things from me. And I know that. I've learned a lot about my personality in this business. So I have to do things to kind of hack my own brain, like automate. So if somebody wants to schedule an appointment with me, I hate scheduling things on my calendar. I hate the back and forth of it. It's so annoying to me.
Yeah.
So I have had to automate, like, here's a link, you do it. Like, here's what's available.
Go to Acuity or Calendly or whatever it is and make the appointment.
Like, don't make me do the back and forth
But
because
see,
I'll
the
drag
thing
my
is-
feet.
But here's the thing about that. And so anybody who has never used a link or a program like Acuity or Calendly or whatever you're using thinks, oh, okay, that's easy. But that takes a high level of organization. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you have to take the time to go and into whatever service provider you're using and block your calendar for okay times. Like, that's not just, oh, give a link because, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, for instance, for me, podcast interviewing is Tuesday and Wednesday. So when I give you a link, you can only make an appointment for Tuesday or Wednesday. And that's pretty easy, right? And we put the parameters on the link. Like if somebody takes 10 o'clock, you have to give an hour and a half buffer, a half hour in the front, a half hour on the back. Like the thing does all that. But for somebody like, for you as an interior designer to be able to have your clients make their own appointments, I know that means you've organized your own calendar with intention before you can even give that link out. And that's not to be underestimated, Rebecca.
And that's how I create boundaries. So I have a hard time creating boundaries when I'm talking to you because you're going to tell me like, I need something. Okay, I'll be there tomorrow. But if I give them a link and I just don't have availability, then it's not up to me. It's up to the calendar. It's out of my hands.
The computer won't let me do it. I can't do it.
Yeah. It says error. I'm so sorry.
And like the automation of like, I use a system called Dibsado. Shaun uses it too, where it sends reminders automatically and things. I'm better at it now, but in the beginning, I had a really hard time asking for money or reminding people to pay their invoice. It was easier for me to have a system that even if I'm pushing, like, send this out
That's
today,
right.
it looks like the computer needs you to pay
That's
it.
right. Like, this is, I don't know who's asking for it, but you better do it.
Yeah, and it works. It totally
Yeah.
works. So
Yeah.
that's like the workaround that I've found technology really helps.
I love that because that takes, looking in the mirror and really, we always talk about understanding our own personal gaps, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the thing is, my way of thinking about it is I'm never going to be surprised that I have gaps, and I'm never going to be surprised that anybody I talk with has gaps. But I'm surprised when you recognize when either one, you don't take the time to evaluate and see what your gaps are. That I'd have little patience for that. Or two, you recognize what the gaps are and you don't do anything to mitigate it. So I love that you are looking and saying, I don't really like asking people for money. I can be coerced into having an appointment more than I want to do on a particular
Mhm.
day. And so let me take these out of my, to-do list and let it happen by automation so that there are these, systems and boundaries set up that it gets done, but it gets
Yeah.
done in the way I want it to be done. And I love that.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of, I don't know, I think something about interior design business. I mean, like I said, I was in the graphic design and marketing business. I'm like, oh, it's a creative service business. They're similar. No,
Way
I
off.
don't. I mean, I was in my early 40s when I started doing this, and I thought I was pretty self-aware, but no, it uncovered a lot of hidden gems, cobwebs. I don't know. It was a
Well,
big mirror.
being an entrepreneur really makes you face, if you're intentional about it. This is what I'm saying. If you're just running through life and
Mhm.
you're like, I don't know why it's not working, I'm just not making the money and I'm not making the clients. But if you do pay attention and you do either invest in relationships like the two of you have, where you're willing to be truthful to each other, or you invest in coaching and
Mhm.
get truthful feedback, it reveals your mindsets, right? It
Right.
reveals like I call them, the stories that we tell ourselves in our head,
Mhm.
right? Whether it's about money or it's about boundaries or it's about productivity or whatever
All
it
of the
is.
above.
All of the
Yeah.
All of
above.
the above.
What kind of things did you uncover, Shaun, as you worked? Were some of your gaps or mindsets that you have actively worked to go around and to overcome?
Um, I mean, I think one of the major issues that it keeps coming up is this idea of, at first I thought I was going to keep relying on creative. Like, I left my banking background and I thought, oh, I'm leaving that on purpose because it wasn't fulfilling and I didn't feel passionate and emotionally wasn't feeding me back. And then I thought, I'm really going to lean into this creative side of what I'm going to do. And this has been there. I'm going to feed into that. And then it's like these conversations with clients that we have, there is so much about money and financial planning and it's like, how could I have thought I'm never going to talk about money again, or wise financial planning or prioritizing? Like, how was I so delusional that I thought I was never going to have to do that? And I don't,
We're just gonna
I,
fluff pillows and shop for
Hopeful.
pretty
and
You were
design
things.
school
hopeful.
didn't prepare me for that. Like, I went back to design school as an adult and they don't teach you that. Like,
No.
hey, remember, you're going to have like 80 million conversations about money throughout the whole process of designing for people. And I think when I finally, it was like, it really has been in the last like 2 years where we've just had, I feel like for a lot of designers, project after project or inquiry after inquiry in the last year, it like just cemented this idea of, get over it. I'm going to have to keep talking about it. Get, like, sorry. And then once I sort of felt like I got past it, every conversation gets that much faster and easier and
Mhm.
less heavy with every client. And,
Mhm.
the barriers that I was like stuck on of like, well, I'm going to be more creative. It's like, well, yeah, I'm going to get to that. But like, let's get through this conversation faster, easier, less painful for everyone involved. And then I can quickly get back to the more creative parts that I want to do
But also,
in my
like, you're
business.
good at those conversations. So
Mm.
maybe like acknowledging that as like a big strength. I mean, you're good at the
Yes.
creative too, but like we've talked about this before on the show, where you lead with some of that pragmatic
Mm.
thought process
Mhm.
And I lead more with the colors and the pretty and the
The look or feel or energy, like,
yeah, the
Yeah.
energy and the emotional side of it.
Yeah.
and
Well,
so
Those are strengths.
I'm grateful to have that, when I look at it, but you look back and I'm like, why was I so stuck on this idea that, like, I'm done with this. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Like,
yeah.
what made me dig in so hard on that? And I think part of that really was, now I look back emotionally with it and I say, I think that was the after effect of leaving that career, of like I wanted space from it. I needed a way to distance myself from it, to prove that I was more designer than former banker and compliance person and all of this. Like, now they're very separate, and now I do have distance on it, and I don't have to keep decrying how I'm no longer that person anymore. Like, that
Right,
person
right.
is still here.
Yes. Well, and I just heard you say compliance. You worked in compliance in banking?
At the end of my career, the last few years, I was in anti-money laundering compliance
Oh.
for a large wealth management division in the bank, and so it was high net worth individuals and foreign currency transactions, and
Oh
there's
my
a lot of shady stuff going on in the world, LuAnn.
Oh
Like,
my
it's a whole
gosh.
different podcast. Like, it's a
Yeah,
whole,
right? Oh my
but
goodness. Now, do you know Rachel Moriarty?
yes, from your
Yeah.
show.
Okay. Because she was in banking and high net worth individuals
Oh,
and all of
really?
that stuff too. Yes.
I can't imagine it. I met her
Yes.
in
I
Atlanta.
know. Isn't that crazy? And she's like totally with her scarves and her caftans and all the things.
Yes.
But it really informs the way she runs her business, because just the way you're observing in Shaun, she's going to come in and she's going to have this conversation about money, and this is what it's going to cost, and that's what it is. And then to your point, Shaun, then she can put her creative hat on and just have a blast designing the space, but she's not going to forego or miss the serious conversation, which establishes this stuff costs some coin. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's
take
pretty
the
cool.
emotion out of it. So I've
Right.
had to like train myself to just like destigmatize it personally. Because, yes, it's incredibly critical and important, and to be clear and upfront about everything. But I've probably had to do a little bit more training and practice to like get
Mm.
used to doing it.
Yes. Well, many designers share that sentiment, right?
Yeah.
And I have to say, I always, with conversations like this, when you're describing, something that's hard to talk to your client about or whatever it is, I always imagine myself in the position as the client. And maybe I'm one of those clients that would be more attracted to somebody like Shaun or Rachel that's just going to come out and talk the money. Maybe I would be attracted to you for whatever reason, for other reasons. But I know there'd be a point very early on that my brain would be like, we got to talk. Tell me about the money.
What is this going to
Because
cost? Everyone's
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
thinking
When are
it.
we getting to
yes,
it?
Of
yes.
course.
And so when I have talked with designers about it, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you can't say, I don't know. Like, I remember one time years ago, I was coaching an interior designer, and we were talking about blah blah blah, and she came to the session and she said, "I'm just so upset. I just had a bad interaction with a client, and they were very upset, and they were, not yelling, but almost."
Upset.
And when she was relaying the story to me, basically the person was asking for her educated opinion on what the budget could be. And
Mhm.
she literally multiple times was like, I don't know. I mean, we have to start designing. We have to start this. And I'm just like looking at this person and I'm like, no, that is not an acceptable answer. That's like me, my darn restaurant analogy. That's like walking in and there's like, the menu and there's no prices. And you say to the waiter, how much is this filet mignon going to cost? And he's like, well, I don't know. It depends on when the chef cooks it. If it's like a 5-ounce or a 10-ounce or a 4-ounce, like we have to see when it gets out here. Like, no, you
Like,
have to
get a
tell me.
ballpark.
Yeah. And it was just so crazy. But that is I've seen that is a trajectory of gaining your feet under you and getting that
Mhm.
experience and understanding that even if it's a range, like as an average consumer, I'm okay if the very first time we talk about it, you look at me and you say, from what you've said and what I've seen, it could be anywhere from 75 to 125K. I'm okay with a $50,000 range. I didn't know if it was 25,000. I didn't know if it was
Right.
500,000. Like, get me. And so I know if I want to keep talking to you. right? Or
Right.
if I'm in the wrong spot, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's really important. And we just had an episode about this actually. And it just takes practice. The more
Yeah.
you do it, then the more it's easy. Also, your numbers get stronger and you get better
Mhm.
at giving those ballparks. I think there are ways if you're really terrified to do my little automation hacks, like
Yeah.
put some information on your website, like give people a place to start looking if
Mhm.
you're too scared to say
Mhm.
it.
Mhm. Beyond the conversation about money and price and investment level and all that stuff, with you're doing your podcast 3 years now, and of
Mhm.
course you have your hotties that come and give you feedback.
Hey,
Um,
hotties.
what are you? Would there be another topic that you find that is brought up over and over again as a struggle, whether the two of you faced and overcame, or you just know keeps popping up beyond um actually the hard conversation about money? What about like fees, like charging flat fee versus hourly? That seems to be, like so supercharged. You're either like 100% for one or for, what do you guys do? Do you do the same or you do different?
We do a little bit different, but we experiment a little bit. Like we
We've
both
both tried.
experiment.
We're both when we first met, we were both on hourly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then recently we've both been like, probably because we're both like, you should do it. You should try it. Like, what's everyone talking about flat rate? Like, so when we have these really like defined scope, really digestible like projects where we're like, okay, there's not a lot of unknowns here. We've experimented with the flat rate structure. And then Rebecca had one, and I can't remember if that one had everything in it, but I've done the like pre-construction is still hourly because that could get crazy. Procurement is still, that could also get crazy. So I'm doing that as hourly, but like moving to these really defined scope projects where I'm like, okay, this is 2 rooms decorating. I can give a flat rate for the design. These other things that are out of my control, like project management, procurement, or any pre-construction phases, if maybe an architect was involved, that I'm going to keep hourly because I don't know how to predict that yet. I don't have a lot of data to
Mm.
match that up against. And I think I know Rebecca has done it a little bit different on some of those.
Yeah, I've been doing the flat fee for design because that is the most fun part of for me, and I know what I need to do to like make a full vision kind of come to life. And then anything beyond, so I will present the design plan and the finishes and everything, and then from there it goes into hourly
Mm-hmm.
for project management, working with contractors, whatever it is. And that also, I feel like it works really well for clients because, like you were saying, they see a price. They
Mm-hmm.
know, like, if we walk away at this stage of the game,
Yep.
we have a design,
Mm-hmm.
we can part ways,
Mm-hmm.
and we're both kind of like
Whole.
happy,
Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah.
but we
Mm-hmm.
both
No,
know what we're
I,
getting into.
as a consumer, I like that as well. It always made sense to me. It's like I can understand and digest that you have spent X amount of time, irrelevant to me, how much it is, designing something that's a deliverable to me. And
Mm-hmm.
then if
Mm-hmm.
I'm fool enough to think I can go execute it on my own, well,
Sure.
then okay.
Have at it.
Right? Like, go ahead. Right. But it feels, and I also feel like by the time, even if I go into it as a consumer, like, okay, I'm just going to do the design part, but then I'm going to go get my own contractor, get my own painter. Like, I think I'm, like I said, a fool enough to go do it all myself. I think by the time you go through that design
Mm-hmm.
process, then the rapport is built and maybe the
Exactly.
trust that I didn't have in the beginning to just sign on for, unknown number of hours, now I'd be like, oh no, you know what? I understand a little bit more what this is going to entail. This is above my pay grade. I'm not going to be good at this. And I trust this person now. And I
Exactly.
probably would do it that way. You know what I mean?
And it's been a lot easier to sell for me. Like they almost always close. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really helpful. And I just wrote one last night where I'm like, okay, here's the flat rate. And I forced myself to add another 10% to it, and
Good.
they're signing it. So
Good.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you both feeling like you just said, you forced yourself to add another 10%, because do you have a suspicion that you're working at, typically working at less than what you should be working at? And you need to, like, do that job by job, add that 10%? Because I like that as a mechanism to stretch your wings and really get you to where you believe you should be.
I think so. I mean, I've been growing my design fee over the past year a lot. And yeah, like it's easy. I mean, I just probably sound like an idiot, but I'm just kind of a minimizer. Like, oh, it won't be that bad. This is gonna be fun. So I know I have to like.
Yeah.
Now, actually, it's gonna be worse. So
Add
That's right.
more. Yeah, yeah.
Right. You actually do know it's going to be worse. Right.
yeah, it
You've
really
done it
will
enough
be.
times. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're writing it and you're so excited, you're like, oh, these are really cool people and I do
I'll do
want to
this for
work on this.
free.
And they've got great ideas and look at all these adventurous pins they showed me at our meeting. And you're like, this is going to be so great. And then you're like, oh, hold on. Now there's 14 new Pinterest boards they sent me after we got, so you're like, I need to get paid for that inconvenience factor or annoyance factor or whatever
I
it is.
don't
It's
like
just,
it anymore factor.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
if I don't like where this is going, then
I can't
please
even
I got paid.
imagine that. Like, all the years that I've been interviewing designers, it's like an onion. I knew from my experience working with designers at Window Works for, more than 3 decades, that it was a very, very highly detailed, complex industry and business to own. But in the conversations over the podcast of 7 years, it's like, oh, I only thought I knew how complex it was, right? And when you just said, oh, send me 14 Pinterest boards and then send me 14 other, that I don't even think I ever had that thought before. But like my brain, like if I ever got an email, it was like, here's 14 more Pinterest boards for the powder bed, I'd be like, nope, I can't do this. There's no way. There's no way. Like you have to live with that, right? Come on. You can't just sit there and be like, let me just look at this every damn blasted time somebody thinks they want to send me another idea board. That's nonsense, right?
Yeah.
Well, Shaun will just like decline.
Yeah,
I do have, when people invite me to boards, I'm like, nope, like, and then I will I'll send a message and I'm like, we need to have a conversation. So like book a call, or at the next time I'm with you, like we need to talk about what's going on. Cause I have a Dubsado email that goes out once I'm getting into concepting, and it basically, the short of the email is it's time to put down Pinterest. Like, and it says like, I'm no longer looking at that anymore because we did surveys, we did back and forth. You gave me stuff when we did the kickoff and I told you have to give me anything you're thinking of now. And it's just the give a mouse a cookie. Like how long are we going to go? And how many versions of the plan am I going to create? Because there's so many beautiful options out there, but
that's the thing. I think you can always find something else.
There's always the next most beautiful thing. And we're probably just as guilty of moving on to that. And the joy for designers is that I get to work on dozens and dozens of projects over the course of years.
Right,
and I get to
fancy new thing I found on another darn project.
Yeah, that wallpaper that didn't make it into one project, I'm going to pitch for the next one. Clients, I get it. They've got to commit. I know that's hard, but it's also like, hey, at some point we have to stop. Like, we've got to triage the patient now and say, this is it for this part, because I can't do the next thing until we stop. And, we could be changing this all the way up till the last day the contractor's installing your light fixture, and you could still be doing this. And, we don't, progress, we've got to make progress for both of us, especially for them. They're spending a lot of money and time on this. They want to get it done too.
Was that something that you came to, as we usually do, the hard way by saying,
almost
okay,
all of mine are that way.
Right,
Yes.
right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I know it to be true. It's like, I've done this, I've done it, and it didn't go right, and then I did it again, and it didn't go right, and then finally you just bang yourself over the head, and you're like, decline Pinterest board invitation.
No more Pinterest boards. Just, you can send me send me a link to it, and I'll put it when we're doing our initial ideas and conversations and kickoffs with you. After that, I don't want any more. Don't try to message me on Pinterest because I don't really check them anyway. Like, some of them sit there for months. And
oh my God, that's how I am with.
And I'm not. I have too many platforms already to watch, so I think that's just you're not going to get my attention and you're not going to get me to reply there. So that's not where we should put it. We should have a conversation or separately handle that.
The other thing that I've tried to do, and this is like, every designer's holy grail, is like trying to detect the red flags on the horizon, which is almost impossible to do, but there are some consistent ones. And I've learned that I don't do well with design enthusiasts as clients.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to do what Shaun's saying, is like keep iterating and all the ideas. They've been following Instagram designers for years. So those I'm trying to find earlier now, and I'll take them in as like a designer on call. Like, you can just buy a block of consultation hours with me, and that's great. Like, we can chit chat about all your ideas, and
Right.
you're just running the clock. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any skin in the game.
Pretend we're girlfriends and we're just shopping together. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
You're paying. That's fine.
I would do that as a full-time job, maybe. But yeah, I want a client that has no clue.
Yeah.
They don't know what they like.
And they trust. They know they've come to a
Yeah.
professional and they trust. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so
Mhm.
true. All right. So before I let you go, I've asked you a lot of the, the bumps in the road. How about something that, some really, meaningful thing that you learn? I'm just going to take the word meaningful out because that puts pressure. That puts pressure, right? Like I'm on other interviews with people like, what's your favorite this or what's your most that? I'm like, oh my God, like your brain just freezes. It's
I
like
can't
my
pick
most
one.
right? So think of something that, super positive, just something super positive, whether it's, positive about having your designer bestie, peer mentor relationship, about having your podcast, about you're both in this career and interior design as a second career. So there's lots of any place that we leave people with something happy and hopeful and, that they're like, oh, I want to have that goodness in my life too.
I think my favorite thing about this industry and business is that I'm somebody who has very few, very close friends that I've had for decades, but none of them have ever been into design. So even my husband, I say he's design agnostic. Like, he just doesn't care. Is the couch comfortable? Is the TV big? Like, that's all he cares about. So like, I love that we get to travel together now. And I mean, Shaun and I go places and we're touching the millwork and looking at the way the patterns go together. No one in my life has ever been as jazzed about that kind of stuff as I am. So I think that's my favorite thing, is it brings everything together.
That's nice. And you, Mr. Shaun?
I think there's something about this idea that probably kept me from business from being in creative or design business in the first place, which was when you're artistic and you're young and people tell you like, it's just like, you're going to be a starving artist. Like, if you do creative, well, what are you going to do for a living? And you're like, wait, I just said what I'm going to do for a living. Like, that's the thing I want to do. I want to be an artist, or I want to do this. And I think one of the biggest things that's come from developing relationships with Rebecca and, other designers and creatives is this like sort of dispelling of the myth that designers can't create sustainable livings for themselves. Not that we all have to be immensely wealthy or anything, but just that it is possible to create a decent quality of life for ourselves that still has room to grow. It's only limited by how much we're going to put into it in order to do that. And I don't know that I fully believe that. Even when I was going back to design school, I thought, well, I'll be able to eke out something. Like, I'll get there somehow. But truly to learn, like, wait, I can really make money doing this. I can have profitability. I can still have a quality of life that I'm happy with my husband, with my family. And like, you can accomplish that. And it doesn't mean working yourself into the ground. Or I should say, it doesn't have to mean that you do that. And I don't think I would, without my conversations with other designers, without sharing all of that with each other, it would have felt like it was this elusive thing that maybe it exists. It's the Loch Ness of business models, but it is possible. It's by sharing how we make ourselves profitable, by how we earn larger profit margins, how we do that. It is out there, and it's not too hard. It's just we have to be dedicated to it. It's not it it exists,
I
y'all.
love
Like
it.
it's out
Yeah.
there.
No, I love it. And that, you know what? I know that I could talk to you guys for, another hour, but that's a good place to leave it because it really is. It is the mission of my podcast. It is the mission of your podcast to let our colleagues in the industry know that it's doable. It's actually
Mhm.
doable. You got to run it like a business, but it's doable. And when you run it like a business, you can do your creative all day long. And so I just I think it's great. And you two are terrific. You're terrific individually. You're terrific together as a duo. And I encourage everyone to listen to your podcast. Tell us how they find you in all the places.
Our podcast is Hot Young Designers Club. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, all the things. Instagram, Hot Young Designers Club.
And then what about your individual design businesses? Tell us about those. Just tell us how to reach and see those because I'm sure people will be interested to see that as well.
I'm Studio Plumb. That's Plum with a B at the end.
Okay.
And I'm at Wrenstead Interiors, WRENSTED.
All righty. Well, you guys are awesome. So we are recording this the week before KBIS. So we're going to see each other next week in Las Vegas, right?
Yes.
We'll come find
Yay.
you.
Yes,
It's going to
definitely.
be a blast.
I know. It is always so much fun. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today. I appreciate you. I'm glad that we did this, and I'm happy and looking forward to sharing it with everybody. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, LuAnn.
Thank you, LuAnn.
What a dynamic duo, right? Shaun and Rebecca not only talk the talk, but they walk the walk. There are many takeaways from this conversation, so let's get into them. First of all, if you're listening, you fall into the category of artist or creative, and I'm curious, what was it like for you when you decided to pursue that path and leave a 9-to-5? Did you get pushback? Did others in your life maybe think that this was maybe more of a hobby than a viable career? This is a common misconception, right? And I'm grateful that Shaun addressed this at the end of the conversation because it is our mission to dispel that myth. And if you needed to hear it today, I hope you did. You can be successful in a creative business. There is room for that in this world. But at the end of the day, it is a creative business, and you have to pay attention to that second part, right? If you listen to the show long enough, you know that we need to emphasize that because so that you can stay doing the creative part, right? Another thing I want to point out is that Shaun and Rebecca both come to design as a second career. They could have gone on in banking or graphic design and been fine, but their passion and their creativity pulled them another way, and they were willing to take that leap. Interestingly, this is quite common in the design industry. I have interviewed many people who have made the switch at some point during their career and not only found solace in their choice, but found success. So if you've been on the fence or this topic resonates with you, I'd encourage you to check out some of the other episodes on this topic as well. Episode 739, I spoke with Mariana Zimmerman, who worked for years in hospital administration. In episode 826, Tanya Smith Shiflett talks about transitioning from medical sales to kitchen and bath design. And in episode 822, Leighton Campbell told us about the shift from being a Broadway performer to interior designer. So it's not only possible, but all of these people, all of our colleagues, are proof that you can do it and you can follow this dream, right? Now, what each of these episodes also hits on, Shaun and Rebecca nailed too, that we can't do it alone. At least you shouldn't. Like, why? Right? This industry is about building relationships and learning from each other. No, you don't have to do it all the same way. Shaun and Rebecca are proof of that. Their businesses are actually very different when you get down to the basics of their business. But offering perspectives and things and, sharing your lessons and gleaning advice from your colleagues is where the value is, all right? Another thing that we discussed with Shaun and Rebecca was boundaries. Shaun has a strict no texting policy, and he pretty much keeps a business-only relationship with his clients. I'm sure they're friendly. You get the drift though, right? Where Rebecca, she's okay with texting, and she likes mixing work and friendship. That's okay for her. And the thing about it is it isn't right or wrong one way or the other. It just simply shows that we need to personally experiment in our own business so that we can identify what we're comfortable with and the way we want to run our business, right? Now, another thing that they talked about was automation. I love how Rebecca has come to understand that she struggles with the boundaries around her calendar and maybe asking for invoices to be paid. So instead of worrying about this, she automates these areas. It takes the pressure off of her, allowing her to focus on other aspects of the business that she enjoys and that need her attention. Okay? So on my website, LuAnnNiagara.com, if you go to podcasts and then go to collections, there is a collection on system and processes. So if you are a regular listener, you know this is one of my favorite topics. And if you go through those collections, you'll find episodes all around the different parts of your business that you can systemize. And a lot of it is just for this reason, so that you can stick to doing the things that you like to do, right? Now, one last thing that caught my attention, and I want to be sure that you heard it, is, the discussion about pricing and fees, okay? Shaun and Rebecca said they have both experimented with hourly and flat rate fees, and they both end up using a combination depending on the project. What I love, though, is that Rebecca said she forces herself to add 10% to her flat rate projects. She tells it like it is. It isn't always easy for her, but she knows in the end she is worth it, and so she does it. Okay? So if you haven't listened to episode 814 with Michelle Lynn, we talked about what constitutes billable hours. And I highly suggest you go back and listen to that one, because Michelle does an excellent job of helping us understand our worth and why it's important to charge accordingly. All right? So just like Rebecca is doing by growing her design fees this past year and adding that 10%, putting in the work, knowing you're worth it. Right? So if you like what you heard today and you want to hear more from Shaun and Rebecca, please check out their podcast, Hot Young Designers Club. Follow them on Instagram, visit their website, hotyoungdesignersclub.com, where you can find resources and the community of their hotties. All right? You just might find your new designer bestie there. Thanks tons, Shaun and Rebecca, for sharing about your journey, your relationship with each other and with your community. I so applaud you what you're doing, and I'm just sending you tons of love and high fives. I have to say, I love the community that we have built here as well. It would not be possible if you didn't show up. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Niagara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNiagara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.